What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, there were two questions leading into RDA versus Fiziev last night. One was, how well will Fiziev hold up in a 5-round fight? Because we've only ever seen him in a 3-round fight. And then the other was, how will he defend the takedown against an elite-level grappler like RDA? Because we've seen him with a very high takedown defense ratio leading up to this fight. But let's be honest, he really hasn't fought somebody of RDA's grappling caliber thus far.
Yeah, we're talking about a UFC former champion. So whenever you get a shot to fight somebody like that, you know you got to bring out all the skills you've got and bring out all the gas tank and cardio that you've ever had. Whoever it was, Michael Bisping or whoever it was, said that was the first time he'd ever entered the 4th round of an MMA fight.
Yeah.
So not just in the UFC, but any other organization that he might have fought in before. And that can be kind of daunting if you've never done it. And he looked a little bit gassed after that 3rd round when he was sitting over there. He was like, okay, I got to buckle in because I got another 10 hard minutes to go. And RDA seems to be landing a few shots on me. I know I'm getting better at these exchanges, but he's still doing his part and causing a lot of damage. So I think Fiziev definitely answered a lot of questions for us. I think he's following the footsteps of Israel Adesanya, figuring out that, yeah, I'm not going to close the gap on some of these grapplers, but if I can do anti-grappling, anti-jiu-jitsu, takedown defense all the way up as much as I can, then I can make them stand and bang with me, and usually he's going to get his hand raised if he's able to get that done.
Yeah, it makes him a really scary fighter at lightweight because I believe Fiziev can hang with anybody at lightweight on the feet. And so the question becomes who can take him down and beat him up, because that's where we perceive that he has a weakness. But it doesn't really seem like he's got much of a weakness there, and he does do that anti-grappling thing that Adesanya does in defending the takedown, shooting underhooks, getting himself off the cage. He utilizes that plum-like collar tie because he's a traditional Muay Thai fighter very well, and he used that to reverse position against the cage, on the cage against RDA last night. And so it was a lot of good things that I saw out of him that makes me believe that he's got a very bright future at only 29 years old ahead of him. But the power late was what really sealed it up for me. There's really nobody more dangerous than a high-level, bodied up, very strong, very powerful, come forward Muay Thai fighter in the first couple minutes of a fight. I mean, those are the kind of people that knock you out and knock you senseless. You know, I knew that he would be a threat early, rounds 1, rounds 2, and even my prediction for the fight when we did our predictions video was that he was going to win the fight 48-47. He was going to grab the first 3 rounds and then lose the back end of the fight because he would be required to exert so much energy in the beginning of the fight. Well, that was starting to become true because RDA did win that 4th round and Fiziev did look very tired, but I think it was more of a thing where he was conserving some energy because he knew that he had won the first 3 rounds. The 4th round was going RDA's way. He got that beautiful takedown, and he said, you know what, I'm going to save it all for this last round. And to see him land with that kind of power and accuracy that late in the fight, man, this guy's really scary.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And you never want to take off a round or take off an exchange even in MMA. But there are certain times when you can decide it's best for you to concede the remainder of a round and just basically take it as an extended break in between the rounds. You know, if somebody's on top of you and there's 1 minute left in the round and you have lost that round, then don't try to scramble for your life to get up just so you can stand up and walk to your own corner.
Yeah.
You know what? If it's a 5-round fight, it's even better. Walk over there. You know you lost 1, but you're in a good position like Fiziev was. Okay, I've likely won the first 3 rounds. I'll give him that 4th one, and I know he's going to be tired because he just had to hold down a grown man for a minute and a half or 2 minutes on the floor, so he's going to be pretty exhausted. I'm going to come out fresh in this 5th and final round and try to hit him with something hard, and that's exactly what he did. Your prediction was almost to a T. It seemed like he was likely going to take the beginning of the fight and then maybe coast through the end, but he decided to turn it up to 11 with that final round starting, and he just went after RDA and hit him with a combination that was really one of the most clean combos we've seen in a while. And I know there's some really awesome highlight knockouts that happen in the UFC. We've got, you know, from last year, the Joaquin Buckley stuff, and you'll just find some crazy things from time to time. But Rafael Fiziev puts on like Muay Thai clinics when he gets in there. And when you see him come with some of those bursts and you see the hooks, and he'll come in with crazy combinations last night. Like one of the, I don't even think they showed it as a highlight, but we watched it and we're like, gosh, what's he doing there? He threw double body uppercuts, landed both of them, and then came over the top of the hook. It's like, you got to have some real confidence in your head movement and your boxing and striking skills to come in and throw 2 body shots with your head and your chin clearly exposed.
Yeah. Against RDA, no less.
Yeah, against RDA, and it still landed. That wasn't one of the highlight moments, but for me, I was kind of like nerding out on it. I was like, that's high-level stuff right there. And he just kept bringing it all night. I think the way he moves laterally inside the cage is really confusing for somebody whose goal is to try to put him up against the wall and then eventually take him down. You know, they're constantly having to find which foot's in front for him because he's pretty good at switching stances. He's always throwing switch kicks and switch punches and Superman punches and stuff like that. So he makes it very hard for somebody to pin him down and then start to drive him towards the wall. I think this guy is a star. I think there's some really bad matchups for him at 55, but as long as he keeps doing the right thing and taking the right fights, he could climb right into the top 5. Obviously, he's going to be about number 7 by the time this next week comes around. I think he'll walk into the top 5 probably by the beginning part of next year. And as long as he avoids, you know, the Islam Makhachevs and you know, people like maybe Michael Chandler that are really good at wrestling and will actually use it, unlike Justin Gaethje, he could see himself in a title fight sooner than later.
Yeah, and you mentioned Justin Gaethje, and I think that's the perfect segue because that was who he called out. Justin Gaethje is exactly what you said he is. He's the guy, the wrestler who doesn't like to wrestle, he likes to bang. And I think for Fiziev, this was the perfect call out. We just saw Gaethje lose to the champion. He's now fought for the belt twice, lost both times, been submitted both times. And so I think that the UFC is going to be looking to build a star off of Justin Gaethje. As unfortunate as that is for the highlight, that is kind of where he sits in his career at the present moment. And what better opponent to give somebody like Fiziev, who's literally a highlight machine, than the guy that goes by the name The Highlight, Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, you talk about a fight that's going to be fight of the night. We can go ahead and guarantee it. Those
either
two
fight
boys,
of the night or KO of the night, or both.
Yeah, those guys are getting a bonus at the end of that one because Justin Gaethje will stand and trade with you. He doesn't give a damn where you teach Muay Thai, where you came from, or just how powerful you are. He'll go in there and crack with you. And I think that Rafael Fiziev has earned himself a shot like that. You know, we've seen him try to go in there and fight as big a names as he can possibly get. And RDA, in my opinion, well, I guess it's not really an opinion. That is the biggest name he's ever had. Yeah. The first former champion that he's ever had. And I think it's time that we see him jump into that next echelon. I think that most of the guys at the top of 55 aren't really saying his name because they didn't see him going against anybody. So they're like, his strength of schedule is not quite there. I'm not going to give this guy a shot, but maybe somebody else will. And when his time comes, he can get it. Now that he's beaten RDA and he's kind of cleared out, you know, half of the top 15, it's time he starts moving down that direction. And I think you're going to see, obviously, we got the top boys, the Islam Makhachevs, the Dustin Poiriers, even Michael Chandler and Benny Dariush and them, Oliveira. Those guys are all kind of locked up, but Justin Gaethje is the perfect one. And I love that Rafael Fiziev doesn't miss an opportunity when it comes to the call-outs. Obviously, he calls out Hasbulla. He calls out Vince Vaughn. He calls out Rafael Nadal. But then he has another one lined up that's actually a fighter in his division, not some, you know, celebrity or something like that. So I think Justin Gaethje is the right one. I don't know if you're going to get Justin Gaethje to budge on that. He might not want to take it. He might want to hold out. That seems to be what he does these days, and he likely gets his way. But if the UFC really does want to build somebody that's a striker that's exciting, they've got Rafael Fiziev locked in the chamber, and I think Justin Gaethje is the perfect matchup. That's a fight night that you wouldn't want to miss, or it's a co-main event on a pay-per-view. Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. And I do want to touch on one more thing Fiziev said, and I think it's so true. A lot of people were talking about Mateusz Gamrot and that fight with Sarukian that happened a couple weeks back, and they were comparing, you know, Fiziev's performance to that of Gamrot's and Sarukian's, and they said, why don't you fight, you know, one of those guys? I can't remember which reporter it was, and he said, look, there's a logjam at the top of 155, and there's two different competitions happening at 155 right now. One is the old dogs with the big names, the Dustin Poiriers, the Justin Gaethjes, the Charles Oliveira, the Conor McGregor, the Michael Chandlers. And the Islam, I'd put Islam kind of in that, except I believe his skill level is top class. And then there's the new generation of guys that are actually, we're all better fighters than these guys, but we can't get our chance because those guys are all fighting each other and kind of holding us out from competing at the top and breaking into that top 5. So I don't want to fight Gamrot right now. That fight will materialize at some point. I want to go after Gaethje, and let's put Gamrot against Dariush or Chandler or somebody like that, and let's bust up this popularity club that's happening at the top of 155. And I actually completely agree with him on that.
Yeah, that's smart, and most people didn't identify that, but that's exactly what's going on. And even though these guys are competitors and they fight against one another, the top 5 and top 6 of those guys, they absolutely know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
They're all going, I'll fight, Justin Gaethje going, I'd love to fight Dustin Poirier. I'd love to fight Conor McGregor. And they're basically boxing all these guys out, and they're just stuck right there outside of the party. They're right outside of title contention. They're right outside of it, and they're having to fight. Islam Makhachev's the only one that slid through that was one of those guys that they were like, nah, he's not fought enough people. It's like, well, the big names are not allowing him to fight them. So it's kind of left him in a place where he can't crack into the top 5. Eventually he becomes undeniable, and then they do line him up with one of those guys, and he does take a ranking or so. But I think that Rafael Fiziev, to identify that, is really brilliant. I think he's got a bright future, and he is for sure going to get one of those big names because the UFC wants to see him do that, and I think they want to see him maybe fight for a title or go in there with some of the best in the world. And even though the biggest names in the sport might not be the best names, they are absolutely the names you want to attach yourself to and go get a fight against.
Most definitely. Well, when you finish fights like that, guys, the UFC definitely wants to build a star out of you. Drop us a comment and let us know who should Rafael Fiziev fight next. If you're new here, we talk all things combat sports, so we would appreciate a subscribe to the channel and smash that like button on the video. We'll see you next time.
Peace.